Avaya has changed my life.
Avaya has made me the woman I am today.
Avaya is my home.
Avaya is personal freedom.
Avaya is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about Avaya.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, Avaya, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at Avaya is what the world needs.
Hello, Avaya family. I'm Andy Anderson. My partner, Ike Allen, and I are teachers, mentors, and the co-owners of Avaya University. Avaya is the creator of over 1,000 books, films, courses, teachings, and other supportive resources. Thank you so much for joining us. Our fellow teacher, Rob Wergin, is with us today to talk about divine energy transformation. Rob has provided healing transformation to over 250,000 people in the last 19 years and has led large and small groups throughout the US and Europe, including Agape International Spiritual Center, the Omega Institute, as well as Mile High Church in Denver. Welcome to Avaya, Rob.
Thank you.
It's good
to honor to be here. It really is.
Yeah, good to have you here. I'm curious. So let's start off with, how did you get into the work that you do today?
I'll be short. When I was a kid, I actually had all the clairs. I was clairvoyant. I had all that stuff, and I thought that was normal. And I think a lot of kids do. You know, they live in this like fantasy world. They think it's imagination, but it's not. And so I started healing animals when I was like 5. And, you know, my parents were really religious Lutherans, German Lutherans. It doesn't get much better than that. And, you know, I would run home with a bird that was hurt or something and say, "Watch, Mom, if I ask God to help this bird, it'll be fine." I'd say, "God, please help this bird," and it would be fine. And my parents thought that wasn't a good thing. They actually thought I was possessed, which was a good thing. I mean, this is all good. And so at age 7, they did an exorcism on me to try to stop me because they were convinced that I had been taken over by the devil. And I was convinced that if I was asking God for help and the bird got bitter, how could that be the devil? You know, why wouldn't the bird catch on fire or something, right? But anyway, when you're 7, you know, you're pretty helpless. So, but the good thing about that was I stopped doing this work. And it enabled me to have a normal, well, not normal, but a kind of, a normal human, you know, adolescence and teenage and adult, you know. And because of what happened when I was 7, I pretty much shut down everything. So I had, you know, I just all of a sudden all the stuff I was seeing disappeared, and I was just like, after a while, I was just like, okay. But then, you know, when I got out of college and I got into business, I had this unbelievable ability to fix companies. And, you know, at the time I thought I was just really smart. And now looking back, I realized I was being guided, and I wasn't aware of it, but they were helping me do things. So fast forward until I'm 51 years old. I'm 73 now, so it's 20 whatever years ago. I had let me back up again. So one of my greatest gifts was my life, because I've had more diseases, more injuries, more depression, anxiety. I mean, I've had it all. I've actually tried to kill myself twice. So, you know, I'm not just this happy-go-lucky guy that sings Kumbaya all the time. I've been through it, and I understand the reason I've been through it is so I could learn 2 things. Number 1, compassion. And number 2, what it feels like to be told you have cancer, or you have fibromyalgia, or you have anxiety disorder, or whatever. So I got trained in being a human by being a human. And so when I was 51, I had this horrendous events happen to me. I lost everything I'd worked my whole life for. And I started on a path of destruction. I started drinking a lot, taking pain pills, you know, and I wasn't religious. I always said I wasn't religious because of the exorcism thing. I kind of blew off the church after that. And so I spent the next 3+ years in and out of hell, you know, and then I finally, in February of 2003, tried to kill myself for the second time. And this time, you know, I'll just say God, because who knows. Something grabbed me, literally shook me, and said, "You can leave your body if you wish to, but we wish for you to do this work, and it's really important in this time, and you don't have to do anything, do exactly the same thing you did as a child. And I said, what was that? Because I didn't remember. And he said, just ask God for help and get out of the way. I'm like, okay. The getting out of the way part was the most difficult. When you're a CEO and a type A personality and a nitpicker, to just take a deep breath and completely step away it was the most difficult thing I had to learn. It wasn't because I wasn't doing anything else. That's all I had to do was get out of the way because I wasn't doing anything else. And it took a while. But so that started in February 2003. After I had a little attempt, all of my clairvoyant, all those C's came back. Everything was illuminated for me, and people just started knocking on my door. And I'm like, okay, this is pretty weird. I don't know what to do. So I just look up and say, please, God, help Bill. And I'd feel all this like boom energy coming through me and down through my hands, and the person would like start vibrating, and then they'd be fine. And I'm like, well, I can do that. So I've done that a few times.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing how you got into what you do today. And I'd love it if you'd go deeper into what actually you're doing. So, what is this divine energy transformation for people who aren't familiar with your work?
Okay, so I want to answer the most commonly asked question first. If you're working with God, what do they need you for? And that was my first question. It's like, okay, I don't understand. You're God, I'm Rob. You want me to be the vehicle for your energy? Why don't you just go direct? I mean, I don't understand. And they gave me a very logical and simple answer, which is, for whatever reason, my body is built in a certain way and has the ability to withstand enormous amounts of light. So I've had psychics look at me when I'm doing my work, and they've said your light field is about the size of a football field. So I don't know, right? But I'm receiving, let's call it 100,000 volts of divine energy, and the beings working with me have the ability to split that out to the number of people I'm working with and to adjust it for each person so that they get exactly the amount of energy they need. So what happens when I work with somebody is that all this light comes down through me, comes down through my hands, and even on Zoom, I can feel it happening. And the energy goes to the most critical part of the human body that the person has presented to me, and it's almost always not what they think it is. So I don't let people tell me their story. I don't let people talk about all their stuff. I just ask them to surrender and take a deep breath and let go. And so all this energy comes down through me and then goes to you. Let's say you had a headache. I'll make it easy. You had a headache. I wouldn't ask you what you had. You wouldn't disclose anything. I would just ask them to work with you, and then I would see initially all the light going to your head, and then it would drip down into other parts of your body. So from what I can tell, it's the most pure energy there is. It's not been compromised over the years. It's just absolutely pure energy. It's pure unconditional love and pure bliss. And those are the two energies that come down through me and go into people. Now what happens is it's super high frequency, super high vibration. We have been taught to hold on to not all, but most of our emotions. So we're walking around like stuffed full of all these things we never expressed. And we carry it forward from lifetime to lifetime. So by the time you've had 80 or 90 or 100 different lifetimes, if you believe in that, you're loaded up. Plus, you're also loaded at the time of conception with everything your parents and 7 generations back on both sides didn't complete. So at the moment of conception, you're not this like shining little star, you're a mess. And it continues. So there's the law of attraction, whatever your parents were talking about while you were in utero and whatever you brought forward and all that stuff starts to happen. And you start attracting things in your life. And because we don't know how to express them or deal with them appropriately, it just adds more density. Density to me is just layer upon layer upon layer upon layer upon layer of unexpressed emotions. It's so thick it looks black. It's not black because it's evil, it's just thick and old. So what happens is that your body will go after the biggest parts of your density, which creates a blockage, which creates stagnation, which creates opportunity for the creepy crawlers to dive into the cesspool that we've created in our lives. And so this energy goes to the density, blows it up, blows it out, and fills that space with divine light, and then goes to the next biggest density and blows it up and fills it with divine light. And I mean, that's kind of the simplest way to say it. I don't care whether you have an ingrown toenail or stage 12 cancer. The same energy is being used for everybody, because the most powerful healing energy that I know is unconditional love and bliss. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times people start laughing at control with it while I'm working on them. And the first time that happened, I was kind of offended, like, you're laughing at me. Like, no, I just feel so joyful. I'm like, okay. So, the challenge is that because we're carrying all of our lifetime stuff that we haven't completed, we're carrying all of our 7 generations on both sides stuff they haven't completed, there's a lot to do. So this is not a one-time, like, pass in front of Rob's hand and you're healed. Because the human body has taken on all this energy for so long, it's like your body's being held together and held up by density. So if I came in and blew out all your density, you'd probably go into shock and die. So we have to do it a little bit at a time, little bit at a time, little bit at a time. But at some point we hit the tipping point where your body is more light than dark, and everything starts to really unfold for you rapidly. So people express, no more cancer, no more pain, no more medications, get out of the wheelchair. I mean, it's endless what I've seen happen. And it's all specific for each person. My goal, and when I say it's not really me, but it's easier to say than to say all that other stuff. My goal for everyone is that they reach a point very quickly where they are more than 50% light in their body and less than 50% thick density. And with kids and animals, that happens very quickly. With us adults, it can be dynamite time, right? And so, a lot of people, as soon as it starts, they start crying, and it starts bringing emotions up. The pain a lot of times will intensify. All of your symptoms will get much more exaggerated. And the challenge is people get afraid of that, because they would what's this guy doing to me? But really what's happening is everything's being brought up to the surface so it can leave. I've for years called it the pimple effect, because I'm a smart ass. But basically what's happening is this toxic energy is being concentrated into a ball of toxins that comes up into the surface of your body, and I can pull it off that way, or it can just fall off. So it's really intense, but it's really fun at the same time. And the miracles that occur are just mind-blowing. We did a weekend immersion last weekend, and we had there was 400 people in it, and there was a lady there that was in her 80s that hadn't been out of a wheelchair, had so much back pain, leg pain, she could barely walk. She was taking all these medications. She was horribly depressed. She was looking at the end of her life being like that. And within 2 days, because we worked Friday, Saturday, Sunday, by Saturday, she was standing up and walking. It was pain-free. It was giggling. So it's not always that quick, but it can be. The more you want it, the more you surrender, the more you just let go, get out of your way, the faster it will be.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, how it works and in what, kinds of people and what they're struggling with and how that works. So let's specifically talk about anxiety. And you mentioned, you had struggled with, I think, anxiety, depression also. How can what you do help someone with anxiety?
Well, let's talk about anxiety for a second. Anxiety is really fear, and fear is held in your lower back and your kidneys. So when you have a panic attack, the kidneys literally energetically drop. It takes the support out of you, and the kidneys support energetically your lungs. Your kidneys energetically support your heart. They support your brain. They're your will, your self-confidence, your self-esteem, your self-love. All that stuff is back there. It's supposed to be, but because we keep holding on to this stuff, we can get fired up pretty easily. And so you have a panic attack or anxiety. So what I've learned from the beings that I work with, and also from watching animals, because animals can be our best teacher, If you have we both have puppies, but if you have a dog that gets gets challenged by a bigger dog or gets scared really bad, especially a puppy, if you notice what they do, they will experience the experience of whatever it is that's making them fearful. Then they will step back and they'll start to kind of shake. And then, because what's happening is all that fear energy is actually a motivating energy, not a dangerous energy. It's motivating an animal or a person to do something. So you think about your kidneys and your lower back, they run the energy down your legs. They run the energy up your body, all the way to the top of your hair and all the way down, but it's legs. So an animal will, like a puppy, will hold on, experience the fear, do some trembling, and then move. Humans will get an anxiety attack and freeze. Mm-hmm. So the two things that are so important to me, and I learned this from having panic attacks and also from working with thousands of people that have had panic attacks, is they call this work for a reason, right? So the first thing you want to do is do your best to take a really big, slow breath and start moving. Because the fear is activated in your lower back, it's up into your adrenal glands. Your body's screaming, do something, let's move, let's get out of the way, let's change our state, let's do something different. And we go, right? And so if you can learn to take some deep breaths and then move, like walk, if you're able to sprint 10 yards as fast as you can, that'll take that anxiety away. If you can move and start breathing, that's the quickest way that I know for me, and it works for a lot of people, is just simply breathing and moving instead of because what happens is every time you have a panic attack and you don't do anything, you're adding another layer to your panic attack density, which is adding more power to your law of attraction, which is going to create even more panic attacks. So we have to break the cycle. So if you were coming to me for panic attacks, in the old days when I actually got to touch people, but even now, I'm going to go to your kidneys first. Because kidneys are supposed to be the strongest point of your body. In Chinese medicine, they call it your foundational energy. It holds you upright, it gives you confidence, it gives you strength, it gives you courage, it gives you power, willpower, lungs and heart are strong, brain is strong, right? But because we're so messed up with holding on to stuff, I would go to the kidneys first, and the light would be directed at the kidneys, which would break apart all this density around fear or not being good enough or being less than love or whatever your mom and dad said, whatever, all junk. And that starts to break apart, and then the energy dissipates down your legs and grounds into the earth. We kind of call this green healing because the energy goes into the earth and Mother Earth uses it, recycles it, because it's really powerful energy. My belief is that God gave us the energy of fear to motivate us. If you just look at what's going on in the world right now, we're going through a big purge and a big change, and the most powerful energy, the most common energy on the planet right now is fear. Everybody's afraid and worried about what's going to happen next. Am I going to have to inoculate my kid? All this stuff, we're in our head all the time. And first of all, none of that's actually happened yet. But second of all, every time you go into fear, all you're doing is increasing your attraction to more fear. And, it's hard for people to get that, but once they get it and they start taking deep breaths and they start moving, and, when I'm moving, I'm pretending I'm walking the beach in Hawaii. So I change my state by moving, breathing, and instead of being in an imaginary state of, oh my God, what could happen, I'm like, I'm walking the beach in Hawaii. And within minute, 2 minutes, it's dissipating.
Right.
So
yeah, awesome.
That's a quick answer. So
thank you. I appreciate you diving into anxiety, panic attacks, specifically for people who, struggle with that, and absolutely connecting it to moving our bodies and in the breath and all of that. I'm a huge proponent of both those things. What about when we have anxiety as it relates to stressful relationships in our lives, whether those are with family, friends, bosses, what have you, someone who, societal people, leaders in society, what have you? What do you think we can help people do in those cases?
This is what I know works. Okay. And this is another technique that takes work. Okay. So all the things I talk about are not like done. What I always tell my clients is you have the 51% of this partnership. You have to do the work. I'll supply you all the tools and energy to do the work. Okay, so me telling somebody to do something, I'm just suggesting it. If you don't do it, nothing happens. So where were we? So one of the things that I recommend to people is you stop being a participant in what's going on around you. We watch the news, we start to worry, we start to project what might happen, and we become a participant in the fear projection that was just sent to us. If you can learn to be an observer instead of a participant. So the easiest way I can explain that is, let's say in this life, you're walking down the street and you see, or your mom or your friend starts yelling at you, you can either step into the boxing ring and participate in that fight, or you can stay out of the boxing ring and observe what's going on and send the other person love and compassion. It absolutely disables the other person, and it disables your fear because you're not participating. When you participate, you're adding all of that fear energy you have into the mix.
Right.
And we don't even know we're doing it because it's so automatic. But so what I say to people, sorry, I was talking for a lot over the weekend. My voice is.
No problem.
What I say to people is, imagine you're sitting in your most comfortable position at home, and you're watching and I don't recommend that you do this, I'm just using this as an example. You're watching a reality show, like the Kardashians. They're my favorite target, right? Lots of drama, lots of yelling, lots of slamming of doors and cussing and all this stuff. Okay, but you're sitting in your living room, whatever, chair, and you're observing all this drama. It's going to trigger stuff in you, but you're not going to get up out of your sofa and go get in the TV with the Kardashians and participate in all their drama. You're just going to observe it. And you do this, so it's like, I had to learn this myself because I'm really empathic, obviously, and when I'm working with somebody, I'm holding them out in front of me, and I'm observing what's going on. I'm not participating. So people have said to me when I'm working with somebody in person and they're having a big emotional breakdown, they look at me and like, he's not doing anything. He's just holding that person. Well, I'm doing a lot. I'm just observing and sending you love and compassion instead of start screaming or participating in all your anxiety. So the first thing is to learn how to be an observer. And it's practice, but it will change your whole perspective. And because you're not participating with the family member or the boss or the partner or whatever, it disables them. They have nothing to do if you're not feeding them your energy. If you just say, I send you love, Bill, what are they going to do? It's really interesting. So the first time you do it, it'll be so surprising to you. You'll be like, oh, this is fun. And it's fun because you're not taking anything on. Yes, you're being triggered by whatever's being said or whatever happening in front of you, sure. But when you're being triggered, it's because your body wants to let that go. You're not being triggered because God's punishing you, or most people will say, I took on Bill's stuff because I had all this stuff happening in me when Bill was yelling. Well, Bill was triggering your stuff, and your stuff is trying to get out. So use your breath and just breathe through and breathe out, but don't participate. Just observe.
I love that. Yeah. And I love what you said about, right, the trigger, right? We feel the trigger, but it's our body wanting to let it go. That's brilliant. And
it's true. And you feel the trigger, and it's going to trigger the whole. So if you think about this moment right now, right now you have all this stuff in your body. And if I jumped out from the chair behind you and boo, it would trigger all this fear. And almost all of it would have nothing to do with me saying boo, right? So think of it this way, and I like to use things that people can understand. Think of from here down as Google. Every experience you've ever had in every lifetime and all your lineage stuff and all that stuff is carefully stored in yummy little files in your body called Google. So I sneak up behind you and I yell, boo. And this all happens so fast, you can't even time it. I say, boo, your fear gets triggered. All this fear from every lifetime and anything to do with boo or Halloween or being scared or, surprised or all that comes forward because what happens is you have that sensation. Your brain either sees it or hears it or feels it, Google's boo. You open 4,287,386 files that have some relationship to boo, but unlike Google, the top 10 files open and all this stuff spews out and you're having this huge reaction to nothing. It's the past. So if you can remember that, I used to do this, when I used to get into an emotional state, especially fear, I would say, is this energy coming from now or is it coming from the past? Mm-hmm. I used to have panic attacks on airplanes and I flew 500,000 miles a year. That wasn't fun, right? And so sometimes I couldn't get out of my seat because I was in a window seat or something. And so my technique was first I would take some deep breaths and I'd move my feet because I couldn't get up. But then I would ask the question, is this coming from right now or is it coming from the past? I look around the airplane, everything's fine. Nothing has to do with right now. This is just something got triggered from the past. So that makes me feel better because I realize I'm not in a panic situation. I'm just feeling something from the past, but the past is coming forward because it wants out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
and if people just understood that, they'd be like, yay, I'm really having a panic attack. Blah,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's so interesting to kind of think about, right. Anxiety and stress is like us worrying about something happening in the future, not having control over something happening. But yet, right, your example right then is like, but it's really coming from the past, right?
It's coming from the past.
Yeah.
And the challenge is that, let's say you're watching TV and they're going to vaccinate kids from 2 to 11 and that freaks you out. You have all this energy. What happens if you don't deal with that in the moment with your breath and maybe with some movement? And the question, is this coming from now or is it coming from the past? You get the first answer, it's the past, okay. Doesn't really matter because it's already happened and it's not happening now. Big breath, a little bit of movement. What happens is you're letting all this energy that got triggered go. If you don't let it go, what it does is your panic attack, your fear, the energy that you're projecting out being that way is doing two things. It's going out into your body and creating more fear, and you are actually projecting that fear out into the universe.
Right.
So if you watch Fox News or cable, whatever, I don't care what you watch, and you start reacting to all this stuff that's being said, what you're actually doing is feeding the energy that's being said. So I say, if you really want to change things around here, stop participating, start observing. Let your emotions out when they try to get out, and watch how everything starts to calm down because your most prominent energy in your energy field is not fear anymore. And when you walk into a room, you completely change the energy because you're not carrying all this fear anymore. And people start walking up to you and say, wow, you look amazing. Did you get a facelift or a haircut or contact lenses or whatever? And you're just being you and in a beautiful state of love and compassion and observation. And it's not, you got to do it more than once. It's like I say about everything. It's like, try it once, didn't work, say that didn't work. It's a practice. It's like going to the gym. It's like learning a new process in your life, but you can do this process anywhere. Big breath, nice big exhale, and shake your hands or wiggle your toes or, make some movement. It's not that difficult. Once you start doing it, it changes everything. It'll change the energy in your house, on your block, in your neighborhood. When you stand in your power, so do we have time to do another thing I want to tell you real quick?
Yeah, sure. We can do that. And then we'll start wrapping up.
Okay. So, I already forgot what I was going to say.
Oh no.
I guess they don't want me to do it.
Okay. Do you want to, if you think of it again, we can talk about it later if you want. Why don't we share about your gift with everyone that they can grab? And there's a button below that people can click through to get on your site.
So when you click on this site, what you will receive pretty quickly are 7 healing calls. They're about an hour long. They've been recorded over the years. It doesn't matter how old they are, because the beauty is when you start listening to one of these calls, you're immediately connected with the sacred beings that work with me, work with you. So you can play one of these calls and participate in it, and you'll feel the energy coming off the call. Or you can play the call at night when you go to sleep, and it'll help you sleep better, and it'll work on you while you're sleeping. You don't even have to listen to it. Just turn it on the volume. So there's 7 of those. There's a forgiveness exercise, because boy, do we need forgiveness these days. And those things will be sent to you as soon as you push the magic button on this site. Those are, and then when you're on our that'll put you on our list. So when we do more free stuff, you'll receive it. My goal has been to keep the cost of all this down as absolutely low as we can. We did a call last night with 400 people on it. It cost $27. You can have a 3-day weekend healing workshop, which is creating all kinds of miracles for $99. So I'm not trying to take advantage of all this stuff that's going on and gouging people. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible so you can get help if you need it.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that, Rob. And again, everyone, to grab those free gifts, you can just click the button below and then go to Rob's website and do that. Any last insight?
My insight is that what I'm being told is that we ourselves, this planet is kind of at the tipping point. We have these factions that are all about anger, rage, and fear, and domination, and control. And we have all these energies that are about love and compassion and abundance. And our job is to continue to project, because see, when we take on fear, we're also projecting fear into the consciousness. Our job is to stop projecting what we don't want and start projecting what we do want. And you can do that by just saying, I am love, I am compassion, I am, do some I am statements, and let the energy shift in your body so you stop vomiting out all this garbage that's not real, and you start projecting out love and compassion. So I think that's really important, and that's what we talk about a lot in my work is, it's up to us to make a change here, and we're not going to make a change by continually hiding under our bed or being angry about things or being scared about what might happen. Instead, how about if we create what we want to happen, which we can do if we all join the club of projecting love and compassion and what we really want, what your soul desires, not what you think is going to happen.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you for those insights, Rob. I appreciate it.
One more thing. Sorry. Yes. This interview with you has been encoded. So anybody just watching, we probably should have said this at the beginning, not at the end, but anybody watching this video is going to get worked on. So if you're at the end of watching it for the first time now, at some point, if you want to just close your eyes and sit back, relax, and just put it on low sound so you don't have to listen to me talking all the time, you're going to get worked on. So that'll be something you can do anytime.
I'm glad you mentioned that at the end. That's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for doing this, Rob. We really appreciate you.
I'm so grateful I got to talk to you today, and I just want people to drop in the love and compassion and see how it changes everything immediately.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you, Avaya students, for showing up for yourself today with that love and compassion. And we will see you all again very soon. Take care. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for this latest class with Rob Wergin. He was with us today talking about divine energy transformation. We talked about many things as it relates to this and his work and all the healing work he's done over the course of several years with so many people across the world. And we talked a lot about anxiety and how, we can take note from our animal friends and how they handle stress and how they handle triggered events or things that happen, and recognizing that we can right, make the choice to, instead of freezing, we can make the choice to breathe, right? Make sure we're consciously aware of taking deep breaths and then moving our bodies, right? Moving that energy around, getting it out of us, allowing it to complete the cycle like animals do. So thought that was really interesting. And then also, I love that we talked about, right, if you're in a stressful scenario, if you're with your family and someone is triggering you, or something is happening that triggers you, or a conversation you don't want to be in, right? Recognizing that you're being triggered because your body wants to let it go. I have never looked at triggers in that way. And I thought that was a really great way, an empowering way to look at it, right? We become triggered, not so we necessarily, right, participate in whatever the stressful situation is outside of us, but we're being triggered because our body wants us to let it go. So how can we start taking that into our lives so that when we do become triggered in these situations, we can recognize the trigger, recognize that it's our body's inherent wisdom wanting us to let that go, and also wanting us to just observe what's happening as opposed to participating in what's happening. So I thought that was really helpful. I hope you found it helpful as well. And we will see you all again really soon. Take care.
Avaya has changed my life.
Avaya has made me the woman I am today.
Avaya is my home.
Avaya is personal freedom.
Avaya is the reason my life continuously improves.
Let everyone in your life know about Avaya.
Everyone needs to know about this amazing company.
Thank you, Avaya, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at Avaya is what the world needs.